Welcome to Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest, Episode 9. Welcome, I'm King Priam by night and we're playing Maya, our protagonist. Did she make some mistakes? We can only find out. Let's continue the story. A moment of triumph. I couldn't wait for the SEP meeting that morning. The streaming was my rite of passage, and I knew that I did great. I couldn't believe that I made it so far. We met soon after sunrise. On the same clearing that I woke up for the first time as a guru. Lisa looked at us all and smiled. Our patrons were looking at her expectantly, so she steps towards the center of the clearing. I am the Thurgy of this sept, and I'm here to make sure we do things the right way. I held my breath. She turned to me, and I held my breath. Maya came forth. Are you a cub who seeks recognition as an adult? I answered. I am, I answered solemnly. Are you an applicant to a tribe? Lisa asked again. I confirmed. I am, I answered. Who speaks for the cub? Lisa looked at the SEP mates. There was silence. Lisa shifted nervously. Daniel, she prompted. He's mourning his slain brothers and sisters, said Kim, stepping forward. I am Rainbow Rat of the Bone Gnawers, Galliard of the Winter Weasel Pack. I've heard the story of the Cub's mission. I'm here to tell it. Would I have to take a new name? I guess they all had secret werewolf names. It made sense. A new life demanded a new name. Would I also have to take a new name? Has the Cub passed her challenge? Asked Lisa. I held my breath. I knew how it all happened, but I held my breath nevertheless. She succeeded was the answer. She had to make an impossible choice, and she succeeded. Lisa turned to me. Have you chosen your name? Lisa turned to me. My new secret name. Suddenly I remember my grandfather talking about his old friends. He never used their real names. They were always Thunder or Grey or Needle. I'd always thought it was a gorilla thing, some kind of war names. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. How to capture my whole life, my aspiration, my personality, my heritage in one name. I cleared my throat. Enigma, a mystery. My name is Enigma, I answered, thinking how I was a mystery even to myself. As for the tribe, choosing the tribe was another matter. It was complicated. I looked at my fellow werewolves and realized how important my family legacy was to me. I don't think it's that simple, I said, looking at Lisa. I don't see myself fitting in any of your tribes. The wolf mother stood by my side. I can teach her the old ways, said the wolf mother, standing by my side, just like I thought her grandfather and his ancestors. I won't stand a get of fenris among us, Kim spit at the ground and bared their teeth. There's too much blood spilled between me and them. I don't speak for Fenrir, growled the wolf mother. I speak for all the ancient gods of mountains and forest and love and war, gods who come here long before Christianity and whom I still remembered. I will make the cub a servant to the Vanir. Why was I feeling like a snare was snapping on my leg? Only one thing remained to the end the ceremony and make me a full-fledged guru. I had to join a pack. I had already sworn to the Wolf Mother. As my fate has been already tied with the Wolf Mother, I chose her as my patron and joined Olga's pack. And so it was done. According to ancient rites, Lisa painted a mystical glyph of my tribe on my sternum. It disappeared after a moment, but whenever I closed my eyes, I could feel its warm touch between my breasts. Enigma of the Vanir's wrath, Galliard of the Morning Wolf Mother's pack, welcome to our sept, she said solemnly. Then she howled. Howls rose towards the sky. They sang about ancient laws of law and stature and secrecy. I remember only a few. Combat the worm wherever it dwells and whenever it breeds. Submit to those of higher station. Respect those beneath you. The veil shall not be lifted. I joined the song. I threw my head back and howled with my sept. I was a cub no more. I was ready to tell my own stories, to earn my own place in the pack, to howl my own songs. Chapter 6. The Storm. Dust to dust. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalt melts and the grass withers and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at the funeral. It was moving. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss, looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists. Something tightened in my chest. One of the hunters had been found dead near the place of power. Nobody knew exactly what had happened to him. There were whispers of rabid wolves. It was our doing. It was our doing, my doing, and the dead had tipped the scales. I listened to the funeral hymns, and I thought that for my every battle-inspiring song, there was an old lady singing eternal rest in a trembling voice. I could feel the tension of seething around me. This death, this funeral had pushed the community, already wary and frightened by the recent disappearance in the forest, to the edge. The world was watching. The press had swarmed to the funeral like flies. I could hear them squawking about eco-terrorism and aggressive vegan activists. The police were watching the crowd with disinterest as they leaned lazily against the trees. It had become political. Suddenly, Pusha Bilowiecka had become political charge and the hottest place to be in Poland. And it wasn't only local politicians and activists from both sides who caught wind of the commotions. The Minister of Environment himself had driven to Bilowiecka to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down and the crowd stirred. Everyone started lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put flowers on the grave. I felt someone joining me. Just look at them, Lisa said, joining me. Nobody wants us here. They fear us, but would never admit that. I couldn't blame them. Who could blame them? I shrugged. Since we started the protest, people are disappearing. They would want us gone even if we weren't the Guru, she scoffed. From the outside, we're activists fighting for the Pusha, but for the locals, we're just strangers barging in and telling them what to do with their lives. But we just knew better. But we just understand more than they do, I said. The stakes are too high to let sentiment stop us. Nevertheless, she was right. The crowd was not happy seeing us there, and the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I listened in disbelief. I watched in disbelief as the priest handled him the mic. He wasn't someone you'd call a good speaker. He repeated some platitudes, but it was clear that he only come to show his face and tighten the leash on the local logging companies. The crowd listened, silent. He was trying to escalate. I realized the conflict was only going to escalate. He was determined to push on with the logging. We had public opinion on our side, and we planned to use it to push back against our government. We were ready to defend ourselves. The last stand. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless, and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs, bark, and tree sap. Insects bustled lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. We were ready for war. We launched in the shadow of the trees, resting after a busy night. We were ready for war. I watched the clearing. With cold detachment, running through the possible scenarios in my head. There were so many of us. People kept coming to the camp, asking questions, looking for ways to help. Students, activists, even Greenpeace with banners reading, "Stop logging and respect EU laws." The live streaming worked. They'd all seen our live stream and came there to help. The Pusha was watching us. Every time a gust of wind was bringing the wet smell of the forest to my nostrils, I felt a strong, steadfast presence. She knew that we were doing everything in our power to save her. I thought about my family. For a century, my family served the Pusha, burning villages, hunting down people who dared to hurt her, and now I was the last Garou of my lineage. What legacy did I want to leave behind? I looked at the harvesters. I looked at the shiny new harvesters lurking across the clearing. Loggers milled around them like ants over a disturbed anthill. The pressure was almost palpable, and the tempers were flaring. I looked at my pack. Everyone knows what to do, Olga asked, looking at my pack. I'll keep the security guards occupied, nodded Lisa, but without Daniel we're a bit stretched. I glanced at the weasels. The weasels were in their position among the protesters as agreed. That left the cops to me. I was ready to fight them. I'll deal with the cops, I said, and then we will burn the machines. That's not the plan, Olga reminded me with a bitter expression. Keep your eyes on the cops and stay put. The cops were gathering. The police were nervous, huddling in groups and shouting at each other and everyone who was in their way. They clearly didn't want to be there. Something was up. It was apparent that they were waiting for something. Then it reached boiling point. It reached boiling point when the minister arrived for photo ops. We could use that. I took it as a good sign. We could use his presence to our advantage in more ways than one. I calmed down slightly. Journalists swarmed around him, praising his balanced forestry policy as they steered clear of the ugly harvesters. In hindsight, you could argue that what happened next set a chain of events in motion that had life-changing consequences for many. But it all started earlier. But it all started a century earlier when the first wolf cubs were stolen. The morning wolf mother asked my four mothers for help. Everything had happened next. The burning villages, my grandfather escaping to America, my mother running away from my father, my return to Bilovezia was a direct consequence. The members of my sept had already moved to their positions, and I also had my part to play. It was our chance to start negotiations. Olga raised her eyebrows. If you think there's any sense in talking to them, she smirked. Now's the fucking time. She grabbed me by my elbow and literally dragged me across the clearing to where the minister and his people were standing. I've got this. I got this, I said bluntly, yanking my arm free. I knew what to do. I know what to do, I snapped at Olga. Stop treating me like a cub. You can't do anything, Olga replied. Just watch. Minister, she yelled. Do you have a moment to talk about what's really going on in the forest? I caught his gaze. He looked at us coldly, like we were vermin. His eyes were distinctly dark and lifeless, like a shark, I thought suddenly. No, he said, smiling. We don't talk to terrorists. I wrapped my arms around Olga's chest and pulled her back before he could jump at him. I could feel her body tense and the change already on its way. Not now, not here, I said to her. We'll find another way. We went back to regroup. The activists, human and werewolves alike, listened as we told them what had happened. The atmosphere was tense. We started our preparations. We prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario. Okay, let's move, I heard someone shout. Move it, move. People, move it. You know what to do. And they did. There were a lot of laughter and friendly pushing, chains clinking, and some people darted up the trees to seat themselves in the branches. I was assigned to the human chain. I helped to form the human chain. Hey, I heard. Get those arms behind you. That's it. Attaboy. It hurts, moaned a man's voice. Next time, do some yoga beforehand, huh? That's it, people. Open your hearts too, so you can hold your wrist behind your backs. So I locked my wrists. I threaded my arms through the arms of the people to my left and right, and then grabbed my wrist behind my back. It was tight on my shoulders, hot and very sweaty. Then we waited. We sat down on a long human chain and watched the loggers and police as they approached and then stopped. We didn't move. A tense silence filled the clearing. It worked. The talks started there and then. I could see that the minister was an apt politician, that he could smell a deal for himself in it all. But I didn't really care. We'd gotten what we wanted. We started to talk. Peace talks. When the talk started, we weren't alone. After the live stream, a lot of people had shared their love for the Pusha. They were coming to us, asking questions, looking for ways to help. So we started talking, and it became big. I don't know what tipped the scales in the end. The press, the international attention, the local interest coming together. Our passion. The talks weren't easy. Finally, an agreement was within our reach, but the talks weren't easy. The state's forests, the woodworkers, the local population, ecologists, scientists, activists, everyone wanted something. I was by no means an expert, but I wanted to play my part in the proceedings. I joined the negotiations. So I joined the negotiation team. They needed someone inspiring and good with words. The talk went on and on. Of course, I had my opinions. Everyone at the scene had their own opinions and their own point of view, and I had mine. Let's take the bark beetle. In the middle of it all was, of course, the spruce bark beetle, a dangerous infestation of an convenient excuse for the logging. The beetle had always been part of the forest ecosystem, pointed out one of the ecologists, but the recent drought had made the spruce more susceptible than ever, the forester countered. We have to cut down the trees to stop a total disaster. I saw one problem with this approach. The Pusha would manage. The Pusha would manage, as she always had. It was a primordial forest and its own mechanism of dealing with infestation. This was how it renewed itself. You fetishize the forest, scoffed one of the officials. People cultivated it for hundreds of years and it cannot survive without our help. He's right, you want to take our forest from us, a group of locals attacked the activists. You're not from here and you tell us how to live our lives. It was not just a forest. They looked at the Pusha as if it was just yet another state-owned commercial forest, but it wasn't. If they had to change their lifestyle to save this unique ecosystem, maybe they should. Opinions clashed, tempers flared, but eventually new constructive ideas started to emerge. At least one of them caught my attention. Within the local populace was essential. It struck us as that if we won the local populace to the cause, everything would be easier. If people saw the forest, not the wood, as the local threshold, prevented the loggers from breaking the law, would be much easier. It was a long and a hot day. I rubbed my eyes. I was so tired. I could barely keep them open. My head was spinning. But I kept going. What was a little heat stroke when so much was at stake. The talks continued. Of course, they had to make it dramatic. There were cameras, there were lights, the negotiations lasted all day long. We reached the first draft of an agreement literally at sunset. I had no doubts. They'd only decided to stop the logging because they realized there was something in it for them. I felt relief. But at the moment I just looked at the sky and laughed. I felt overwhelming relief, and then my exhaustion caught up with me. I found a quiet spot, sank to the ground and fell asleep. Epilogue: Quiet before the storm. The next morning, sharing of the crowd woke me up. It was a victory after all. We'd won. The Pusha was safe, at least for the time being. People were excited, antsy, full of emotions. If the loggers hadn't left, they probably would have charged at them. I was almost disappointed. But to my disappointment, now there was no one to fight, so we parted to blow off steam instead. Soon we were all dancing, talking, singing, and in some cases making out in the shadows. I had to stop someone from making a fire. I mean, for fuck's sake, we were in the middle of the forest during a drought. But my friends didn't join the festivities. They just sat on the logs looking at the humans with weary eyes. I joined them. I found my pack. We sat in the shadows, far from the humans. Look at them, murmured Olga. Loud, messy, stupid. Tomorrow this place will look worse than if we'd let them do the logging. What a killjoy. They have the right to celebrate, I said, and I'd rather they were celebrating at the end of the logging than destroying the forest. Their celebration is meaningless. They wound Gaia even when they try to help her. Olga looked at them for some time, her eyes darkening with anger. We need to watch them, and when they try to do something stupid, we can't hesitate to put them in a line. She was right. Oh, I was afraid she was right. Time would tell who was right. Under the trees. We gathered in the clearing in which I'd first woken up as a guru. Lisa stood in the middle of the clearing, the wolf and the weasel by her side. Now, she said, looking at Cornell and Olga, you two, you need to solve this, today. Olga nodded, there was anger in her eyes. It won't last, the peace won't last, she barked at the Cornell. I should have stopped you, then we wouldn't be in this situation. That night we planned the future. That night was long and full of hope. Olga tried to keep the set together. Olga talked with Cornell and Kim and Pat for a very long time, trying to convince them to stay in Bilovetsa. They weren't fond of the idea. But I managed to convince them. Somehow I managed to convince them. We'd been through too much shit together to just part ways like that. Lisa and our patron made sure that we did right by Garou laws and the set matters were resolved. What more had happened that summer? But they didn't cover everything that had happened that summer, though, so some consequences would have to unravel with time. Daniel left. Daniel never recovered from what I'd done. He remained a wolf and went to the forest. It would be the last anyone saw of him. Annie and Bartek were still alive. Despite everything that had happened, Annie and Bartek were still alive. They had a summer fling they would both remember with a smile. We would disappear from each other's lives slowly, our paths too different to keep up with each other. But it was all still ahead of me. For now, the first chapter of my life was coming to an end. I come here to learn about my roots. I dug my hands deeper into my pockets. My family had fought the humans who'd invaded the forest for generations. Now, there I was, making pacts of non-aggression with the loggers. Was I a traitor? Or was I the only one who finally got it right? The quiet before the storm. Your story is almost over. This might be a good time to take a last look at your character sheet. Okay, let's do that. Maya Enigma Borodic, age 24, profession student, nationality American, breed Humid, auspice Galliard, storyteller, rank Cleath, tribe Vanir's Wrath. Vanir's Wrath, a nascent splinter of the Ghetto Fenris, identifying with the Vanir of ancient Nordic lore. Cleath, a young Garou not yet of any significant rank. Pack, Morning Wolf Mother. Glory 4, Honor 3, no wisdom. Mind and body, condition, healthy, goal, mystery, my family history. People were scared of my family, they didn't even want to hear the name. The Wolf Mother was my connection to the forest. My family served her for ages, burning villages for the Pusha. I joined the protesters to live up to my legacy, and my family duty was to burn villages for the Pusha. I managed to stop the logging. Goal, identity, earn glory, honor and wisdom and make your own legend. Pursue to regain willpower. Relations, Morning Wolf, hostile. Winter Weasel, cautious. Anya, loyal. Bartek, sympathetic. Daniel, gone. Family, it's complicated. Kim, sympathetic. Cornell, friendly. Lisa, neutral. Olga, cautious. Pat, neutral. Pusha, loyal. Police, sympathetic. Impress, cautious. Okay, that's Mia's evolution in my hands. Comment if you get any other choices made, different tribes and different friendships. But let's continue. The clearing was empty and full of sunlight. The harvesters were gone, leaving the scars of their tracks behind. People were cleaning up the campsite, making plans to turn the temporary protest site into a permanent tent town. I took a deep breath. The air was sweet, the smell of coming rain, the upturned soil, smell of turf, and the sweet aroma of decay. There would be a storm later that day. I could feel it. A faint, sharp layer of electricity surrounded the wetness. I smiled. I liked my new sense of smell. This is not the end, said the ash-grey wolf. Assume you know that. A sigh. Of course I knew. It was just a momentary break, a truce that both sides needed to regroup and reinforce. Yeah, I know, I sighed, looking around. I had something else on my mind. There was a squirrel somewhere. I could smell it. I wanted to chase it, to run, to feel the thrill of adrenaline rushing through my veins. But I couldn't spot it. It mocked me from the branches above, squeaking curses in its squirrel tongue. I couldn't see it, but I ran anyway. I was Lupus, the wolf form. I doubled down in pain, my arm's leg cracked and twisted, my skull fractured and reset itself in a different shape. Fragments of bone crawling under the skin. My skin was rippling, sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When the pain subsided, I was Lupus, a wolf, seeing the world in smells and sounds, so I just ran for the thrill of it. The end. Okay guys, that was Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of Forest. I hope you liked it, and trigger like below and follow for more content like this. And in the future I plan Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and we're also gonna play Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood. So stay tuned and I see you next time.